Hey everyone, welcome back to the Waterlad Podcast. I'm James Marshall and I've got a huge episode for you today. But firstly, this episode is brought to you by the Waterlad merch. Yes, we have restocked in hats and hoodies, which were by far the most popular items. So if you enjoy this podcast, go and be a lad by getting yourself your own lad hat or hoodie, and it's as simple as heading over to waterlad.com. Also on that website, there's also discounts for Mintwear, Sujon, and Pure Sports CBD. So go and make the most of those discounts while they're there. Anyway, I've got a great guest for you today, so let's get to it.
What a lad, what a lad, what a lad, what an absolute lad. What a lad, what a lad, what a lad, what an absolute lad.
Okay, here we are. Now, since day one, I've had an endless amount of requests to get this lad on, and I wasn't sure if the day was ever going to come. On the field, he's known as one of the most destructive players in world rugby, having dominated at all levels, including for teams such as Tasman, the Chiefs, the Highlanders, and of course on the international stage with the All Blacks. But along with all the highs, there have also been plenty of lows with the endless amount of injuries he's had that have taken their toll and has recently forced retirement. And as most of you guys will already know, he is an absolute lad. He's one of the greats. It is the man himself, Liam Squire. Welcome, Squiddy.
Geez, hell of an intro. Cheers, mate.
Mate, stoked to have you on. Like I said, I wasn't sure if this day was ever going to come. I put the feelers out a while ago, but I wasn't sure if you were ever going to be keen. But, mate, stoked to have you on.
Yeah, no, I think you caught me on a good day a couple of days ago. So, no, but why not? I've listened to a few. It's been bloody good.
Oh, mate, appreciate it. But, mate, you're officially retired now. So how does that feel?
Yeah, I've probably known for a couple of months that I was going to retire, unfortunately. But, yeah, I thought I was handling it pretty well, but sort of reality kicks in when you make it official. So it's probably been a weird couple of days. Still trying to get my head around it and, I guess, sort of get on with life outside of it. But, yeah, should be all good.
Yeah, so how hard was the decision? You said you knew a while ago, so talk me through that process. When did you know? How did you know?
Yeah, so sort of after that second Super Rugby game, I got a scan a couple of days after, and it showed that the cartilage area that was had damaged again. So getting that straight away, my sort of chances were pretty slim when that happened, but we sort of wanted to wait 6-7 months with a lot of rest and a few treatments on it to see if it would heal. But sort of deep down I sort of had that gut feeling that this was probably going to be it. But it wasn't something I definitely took lightly. It was I had a few words with the doctor and whatnot, but I was sort of looking for any sort of treatment or surgery, but yeah, we're pretty limited.
And how is your body? You mentioned your knee, but I know you've had a heap of injuries throughout your career. How is the whole body feeling in general?
Pretty poor, to be fair. Especially down in Dunedin too, with these cold mornings. I struggle to get out of bed. It's actually, I sort of joke about it, but the old hip and knee is not too flash, and then sort of if I sleep on one side or on the shoulder, that bloody feels a bit tender in the morning, and it's sort of, but yeah, it is what it is.
Is time going to heal that, or is that just going to be the normal life for you?
I think I might have to get used to it, But I'm considering moving somewhere a bit warmer. So I think Dunedin's cold's probably done me wrong.
But it was the knee that is the reason you can't really play again, eh?
Yeah. So it's the knee. Speaking to the surgeon when he told me that we're probably going to hang the boots up, I asked him if I'd be able to go running and do that sort of stuff just to keep fit and sort of keep active. But yeah, he's strongly advised not to run on it again. So that was pretty tough as well, because you spend 12 years playing footy, running around every day training, and then you get told, you best not to run again. Now you're finished. So yeah, that kind of sucked,
mate. So that's no running ever?
Yeah, so he said, I wouldn't take up jogging, or like I could run up to run somewhere like if it was like if I needed to,
Yeah.
but
Chase a ball.
yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, if the dogs are bloody up a hill or something, might be all right.
So what are you up to now that footy's done? You're working?
Yeah, so I was quite lucky. I sort of when I found out about my knee earlier on that I wasn't going to play Super Rugby. I actually went over to Andrew Hall's place for about 6 months. He sort of took me on working there, and that was real good for me, I reckon, because it sort of set me up for life after footy. I just, I got a taste for it, as well as not having the pressure of needing to work full time, and I could just sort of do what I needed to do on the farm. And he was awesome, eh? Sort of talked to him about what was going on, and he, he's full of wisdom, and he's obviously been there, done that. So I think that was really good for me. I was quite lucky in that way.
And is that what you're looking to do from now on in?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm farming down here and working on a couple of different stations doing casual. But yeah, I sort of made a decision that I would probably move out of Dunedin, so most likely be ending up in Nelson. But if that's farming or working in the forestry, I'm not too sure yet. Nelson's sort of not really too renowned for farming, so yeah, I'll just sort of play it by ear. But yeah.
And how's the body hold up farming or doing this harder work? I'm guessing it's hard.
Yeah. You do get some days where you're a bit sore limping around, especially if you do a lot of walking on the hills and that. But yeah, it's definitely nowhere near up with the rugby side of things. But yeah, you do start to feel it.
And how are you sort of feeling mentally around the whole decision to finish rugby? Do you feel like you're going to miss it, or are you also a little bit excited to not have to put your body through all this pain again?
Well, at the sort of start, I was kind of sort of happy, kind of looking forward to it, because I was quite pissed off and that I was injured again, and I was back to sort of square one. But now it's sort of been done, and I know that I won't play again. It's pretty disappointing, and I guess a little bit angry about it. But I'm just still trying to get used to the idea of actually, I'm not going to put on that Highlanders jersey or that again. So yeah, still trying to get my head around it.
Yeah, because you love rugby, you love the collision aspect of it. You can tell that, but there's also parts of rugby that you weren't a massive fan of, were you? Like the being in the spotlight. You're a guy who likes to be up in the bush and away from it all, is probably a fair way to put it, eh? Yeah,
that was something I really struggled with. I probably wasn't prepared for, I guess, in a way that sort of fame that comes with sort of getting into the All Blacks and that. And I never really got used to it, and it was pretty uncomfortable, to be fair. So, that's definitely one thing I won't miss. I sort of, going back and just becoming your sort of average Joe back into the normal public will be pretty good. I'm looking forward to that.
You'll be loving that. Oh, mate, that's good stuff. But anyway, I remember you coming to Tasman I think you must have been like a 19-year-old guy. So I pretty much know your story from then on, but I don't know much about what your life was like before then. So give us a rundown on what your life was like growing up.
Yeah, I grew up in Palmerston North. I had 3 older brothers, so that was a pretty fun upbringing. Yeah. Being the youngest and all. Yeah, so I spent most of obviously until I was 18, 19 in Palmerston North. Went to school at Palmy Boys for all of 2 years, and I left there when I was 15 and went dairy farming. So
true.
I didn't really get along too well with school and all that. So yeah, went down a sort of a different path.
Yeah.
Gave up rugby once I left school, and probably sort of took a few wrong turns, but it was all good.
What was it about school that you didn't relate to?
Probably a few disagreements with teachers. I was quite a stubborn wee kid, but I don't know. I just didn't really like it. We just didn't get along, and at the time, because I was only 15 and the age to leave was 16, we come up with an agreement with Palmy boys to actually give me an exemption to leave. So they sort of encouraged it, and I was all for it. Probably better for them that I left.
All right.
After about sort of 6 months, I was like, fuck, was that the right decision? But so I actually tried to apply to go to fielding ag, but I got denied, so that was it.
And were you good at rugby at this age? Was that any reason to start school or nah?
Oh, I didn't take it seriously. Yeah, like through age group, like under 11s, under 13s, and that I played for Manor too. But sort of when I got to boys high, I did trial for like the under 14 Colts, which is the top team, and I missed out on that. And it sort of soured me with rugby, because it was almost like who you know, not what you know there.
Yeah.
So I ended up playing, I think it was maybe like under 45s kgs. So, and it was like a B or C team.
Yeah.
I think we went the whole year without even winning a game, and I think we would have scored less than 5 tries the whole season. But it was fun though. It was quite cool.
So then how did you go from that position to eventually getting back into rugby?
I went working as an engineer. I was about 16, 17 by now. I was about 17, so I didn't play for a good couple of years. And then I joined a club. So when I was engineering, the other worker there, his old man was a manager of the Marist Colts, Old Boys Marist Colts, and he encouraged me to come along and start training with them. And so I linked up with them and played 2 or 3 seasons with them. Sort of on and off, obviously with club footy and working, you sort of play when you can. And it was actually quite bizarre. I ended up playing against Palmy boys, so I was playing against the guys I went to school with in the same age group and that. So yeah, that was good fun. But so I did Colts for 2-3 years there, which was it was real cool. And
then how did the move down to Tasman come about? Is this when you started to think that you might take rugby a bit more seriously?
No, it was sort of encouraged probably by my mum that I wasn't sort of doing too flash in Palmy. I was sort of at a dead end, to be fair. I just had surgery on my back. That was from a rugby injury. But,
you broke it, didn't you?
Well, I had a small fracture in my L4, but that was because I would have been 75 kgs max, and I remember playing in I think it was senior A's, and I just ran as hard as I could at their number 7, he was a big bouncer at one of the good nightclubs in town. His name's Tonga, I think his name was Tonga, and I just got folded. Fuck. I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Well, you did do that again. You did it almost every carry.
Oh, I know.
You just obviously put on a bit more weight.
Yeah. I didn't have any weight, and he just, I stopped at a rate of knots, So, that was a good learning curve.
And that was a pretty bad break, from memory. Was there a chance that you might not have been able to play again? Yeah,
they sort of advised not to sort of push it and play again, but I spoke to once I got to Nelson after that. I was about 19 when I ended up moving to Nelson, and went to the physios there, and we'd done a lot of work to try and get a lot of strength in my back, sort of back up and running, which worked out real well, and probably ever since then. So it was I was 19 when I got that surgery, right through till now. I haven't had any issue with it whatsoever. So that's been quite pleasing.
The one part of your body that's still going strong.
The bit with the big screw in it. It's still holding me up well.
And then talk about your transition down to Nelson. Obviously, I remember you being a very explosive, talented, rangy loose forward, carved up the club scene as soon as you came down, and maybe took 1 or 2 years before you ended up becoming a big part of that Tasman side.
Yeah, so I was 19 and I started playing for Marist Senior A's, and my first year there we had a stacked team. We had like Lucky Mulapolo, Kieran Fonatia, I think it was Jimmy Proctor and that.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning it that year, which was awesome. And
You did.
I was quite lucky enough actually to make the Marcos that year, which was 2011. And yeah, that was sort of where it all sort of started. And we were like, that was the year as well that Tasman and Southland and they were trying to get us sort of relegated and that. So still didn't know what was sort of happening with Tasman at the time, but like, yeah, being in that environment was awesome, especially only being 19 and a semi-professional was quite cool.
And you were a big part of the whole turnaround of Tasman, like you said, a side that they were trying to get rid of, and to see where they are now coming off 2 championships. I mean, just the whole turnaround of that Tasman Provincial Union has been massive, and you're a big part of that.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. I remember, yeah, in that 2011, like I think we won 2 games, and we were battlers, but like we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then I think it might have been in 2012 we even come close to winning the Ranfurly Shield, and we started to improve then.
Yeah.
And like we started to get some good players coming in Nelson, and then from then on each year we've grown, which has been real awesome. And you look at it now, the amount of Super Rugby players and All Blacks that are in there is pretty awesome. And like when I first started, I think we had 2, which was Quinton McDonald and Joe Wheeler. So yeah, it's pretty awesome,
mate. It is cool. And then you got a sniff at Super Rugby with the Chiefs. How did that one come about?
Yeah, it was. I think that was 2013. I ended up signing with the Chiefs. I was halfway through Mitre 10 and didn't really know where or if I was going to play Super Rugby, but it was something I was aiming for. But I actually got approached by the Western Force before that.
Oh, true.
Yeah, speaking with my manager at the time, like we talked about a lot of things like going higher honours like All Blacks, and if I spent 3 years in Australia, I could apply for citizenship, and like he did the pros and cons, and in a way was talking me out of staying in New Zealand. He said that there's a lot of good players lining up to get to that higher level of the All Blacks, and steering me towards going to Australia.
The money.
luckily I turned down and signed with the Chiefs. So yeah, that was awesome and quite exciting.
And then how was it up at the Chiefs? I know Whopper said on his podcast he was obviously living with you and my brother, and sounded like you guys had a hell of a time together. But how was your times up there at the Chiefs? Yeah,
it was awesome, eh? Like I remember sort of around the second day being in there, like the likes of Liam Messam, Ben Afiaki and all that were there, and like you remember watching them on TV for years and idolising them, and all of a sudden you're training with them and that, which was real cool. And like Brodie Retallick and Sam Cane were young All Blacks there as well. So yeah, that was real cool. Definitely enjoyed that, and living with your brother and Whopper, that was never a dull moment. I don't think Whopper's hygiene's changed at all, so pretty untidy.
Yeah, what is Big Whopper like to live with? He said a few stories about you, but I could imagine he would be pretty tough work.
Oh, it was we'd get to like 9 o'clock at night and watching TV, and then me and Tojo would be like, oh, we're going to bed, and he'd honestly be like a 10-year-old kid. You'd think, no, stay up. Don't go to bed yet. And he'd bring his mattress into the lounge, sit there and just want us to watch TV the whole night with him. Just didn't like being alone in there. But he pretty much lived in that lounge.
True.
Just sat in front of that TV and watched Code. We'd have to watch, I think it was 2011, 2012, clips of Southland scrums with him because he's put them on his MySky and downloaded it all. It's painful.
Oh, that's classic. And what about on the field at the Chiefs?
Yeah, that was cool. I remember it was my first year I played a lot more games than I thought, and really enjoyed it. Especially playing alongside those guys that you've been watching on TV, and being a first year Super Rugby player. Like any opportunity to play out there was something you took with both hands. So, but it was also daunting at the same time. Like it's a huge step up from mitre 10, and being a young fella in your first year, but like loved it at the same time.
Did you feel ready mentally getting a crack at that level?
I don't really know sort of what was sort of expected or sort of what come with the territory of being a professional rugby player.
Yeah.
Because like for me, I obviously didn't play any age group rugby for New Zealand, or I wasn't sort of guided for an academy when I was young. I spent, I was 19 when I first went into Tasman's academy, but I never really sort of had that normal pathway that most of the rugby players have now.
Yeah.
Like I never played first 15 or any of that. So that was a massive sort of a wake up call. And it is hard to prepare yourself for what is to be expected, especially like we do get advice on how to deal with situations and that, but no one gives you the script for what actually does come your way. So just trying to prepare yourself as much as you can for it, but at the same time you've just got to take it as it comes.
What are the hardest things you have to deal with, you think?
For me it's sort of the outside noise, and especially the higher you go. Like you're always under the microscope, and I obviously that does come with being an All Black, but I never got used to it, and I was never comfortable with it. But that was challenging, and like you do get criticised if you have a bad game and whatnot. But for me, like I knew I could handle someone roasting me on social media or something, but it was more the effect it had on my family. That was the sort of the main one for me, and that really sort of pissed me off a few times. So I wanted to protect them as much as I could, but you can't really control what some people say or do.
So you weren't a big social media man though either, were you?
Nah, I never really got into it, and I still can't really get into it. It's we do get talked about creating your own brand and whatnot, but I've given up on that idea. I just post hunting pics and either a retirement or an injury post.
Just the big key points.
Yeah, just the heavy hitter. Yeah.
So then, what brought the move about down to the Highlanders?
I didn't really enjoy living in Hamilton, to be fair.
Too many late nights with Whopper.
And living with him just poisoned me pretty much. It was just too much. I had to get away from him, mate. No, because I'd obviously moved to Nelson, and I've never lived in the South Island.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the South Island and the people there. So I approached the Chiefs and said, look, I'm keen to stay down south and move. There's opportunity down in the Highlanders. Went back and forth talking to them, and finally came to an agreement that I would go down. So, and I knew that decision was the best for me, especially with rugby. So, and I knew I had to make that choice. So, for the better of myself. So, I'm glad I did, and it's been awesome ever since I come down to Dunedin.
And you weren't wrong, because your form just went to a whole nother level down there at Highlanders.
Well, yeah, I think the environment here sort of allows players to do it, and it's like we get a lot of players here that are scattered from all around New Zealand and that, and we sort of see ourselves as being the outcasts that no one really wants. But for some reason that sort of works when everyone gets down here, and we have a lot of fun. Dunedin's an awesome place to live, and a lot of things to do. So the team culture sort of just produces itself in this environment.
And straight away as soon as you went down there, I think the following year you got your All Blacks call up. How was that one?
Yeah, so I think Yeah, well, that was 2016. I actually played a trial game for them in 2015. I think you get called up to play a game of two halves. It was me and Shane Christie,
True.
and we literally flew in to North Harbour that morning. Did a team training, played that game that night, and then 6-7 o'clock in that morning we flew back to our provincial teams, and we would use it as a number just for them to have a hit out, because I think the Crusaders had just won the Super Rugby, so they were resting, and that. So, but that was an awesome experience. It was, it was sort of chucked in the deep end there. They were yelling at calls. I had no idea, but we just went with it.
After that, did you feel like you were up to that level to be an international?
Not really. Nah, it was. I remember literally going to my first ruck, and I think it was Ben Franks come in and just absolutely annihilated the guy that was there, and I was just next to him, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, I did not want to be on the other end of that. So that was a huge wake up, like, to say, this is the level that you got to be at and the physicality of it. So that was awesome to have a bit of a taste of that. I'm glad it wasn't me in the ruck though.
So how did you get so physical? Because you are known for your physicality. You throw your body into everything. Every time you go out on that field, you're just fully into it. So how did you get that sort of reckless regard for your body? I don't really know. I've sort of been asked about it a few times, but I guess it's sort of a mindset that I go into a game. Like other players have got their own ways of how they sort of go out to try and inspire their teammates and that, and I sort of figured out what works in a way best for me. Sometimes it doesn't go as planned, but and it was a style that I enjoyed. It sort of gave me quite a good feeling when out there on the field, if I could play that style, and I really enjoyed it. That physical battle. I guess when you sort of going head to head with another player, it's pretty. You can either go one way or the other. So it's an exciting challenge for yourself to try and sort of dominate each time. And I just enjoyed it. So what was your mindset going into a hard carry or a big tackle?
I guess if it was a carry, well, it's probably the same as a tackle, but I just wanted to run into it as hard as I could. I didn't really worry too much about technique at the time. It was just I sort of knew if I could sort of hit someone as hard as I possibly can each time, that I'd most likely win the contact. So, it was sort of, sometimes I should have used footwork, but it was fun though, and I quite liked having that risk of either getting folded or getting gain line. So, yeah.
Did your mindset ever change with the endless amount of injuries? Like, did it get to a point where you started thinking, maybe I shouldn't be running into this one quite so hard?
Yeah, I had a few people sort of suggest maybe to sort of ease into it. And just try and pace myself, but yeah, I'm sort of either all in or not kind of a person, and I did think about trying to play a different style and sort of try and reserve my body in that, but that wouldn't have really sit too well with me. I guess I sort of pride myself on being a physical player, and that's what I really love about rugby. So I think if I went away from that, I'd be sort of taking a backwards step. But maybe I should have.
Oh, that's good stuff. Anyway, back to your All Blacks call up. How did you get your call up?
We just got back to Dunedin. I think we were playing up in Wellington, and we were having a 2-week break, so it was the international break. And I actually thought, I wasn't going to make it, so I'd planned to head away the next day on a hunting trip, and I had a mate coming down to join me, and he was bringing a dog for me as well. And So I was actually in McDonald's drive-through because you know what it's like after a day after a game and you've been flying back to your hometown and unpacking and all that. So I went there, and then I think it was Shandy rung, and I was like, because obviously the players had talked about it a few days prior, like who would make it and whatnot, and I think it was Shane Christie was messaging me every half an hour asking if I'd been called, and I was like, nah, they're not going to call. I was like, sort of humming and hawing if I actually wanted them to.
Yeah.
And but yeah, he rang anyway and said congratulations, and because I was thinking, my mate coming down and all that, and obviously I've got dogs that need looked after. I was like, when do you want us to fly? And he's like, 7 o'clock. And I'm like, oh, yeah, in the morning. He's like, no, that night. I'm like, I feel like I was always going to say, can I fly in the morning? But I was just shut my mouth and said, yep, good as, I'll be there.
Right, you're like the first person to ever be slightly gutted to be called into the All Blacks.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it just seemed I just had to sort a lot of stuff out before I could actually go. So, yeah.
And then, what was it like once you were up there?
Yeah, that was probably your first taste of sort of the limelight that All Blacks get put in. I remember because we flew up that night. It was me, Ben Smith, and Aaron Smith that went up, and obviously someone had leaked that there was 2 or 3 new players being selected, and we went out for dinner that night and didn't really know that we were going to bump into, because obviously all the news reporters were up in Auckland as well because of the press conference the next day, and we went out for dinner, and we remember walking past and they were all out having dinner as well, and I'm there with Ben Smith and Aaron Smith. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together that I was selected, and I think within half an hour someone had leaked, not that I was in, but they knew that there was a bolter that's been selected. So that was quite funny, but it was good.
And how did you find the whole media side of becoming an All Black? Obviously, once you first named, you probably have to do thousands of interviews and all that sort of carry on, photo shoots and all that. How did you find it?
I found it was pretty uncomfortable. It was when I was growing that mullet too, so that's all they were asking about, and if I was going to cut it and or whatnot. So I was it was quite long at that time too. I hadn't planned for any photo shoot or anything. So that was quite full on. I remember we did a whole day of it, and I was just exhausted. I was like, shit, I'd rather get into a training camp rather than doing this.
You were before your time with the mullets too, eh? Now everyone's got them.
Yeah, everyone sort of jumped on board. Now, I remember when I had it, people were like, oh, what are you growing that for? And all this and that. Now it's sort of, if you don't have one, you look the odd one out.
You made it cool again.
I remember some lady wrote online and said, she was like, he's a disgrace to the All Blacks and shouldn't have the mullet and all that. And I was just like, it cut me deep, eh? She was like, he needs to go to the barber straight away.
You can bag me, but not my mullet. Never bag the mullet.
Yeah. I was like, have a go at me, but not the mullet.
Yeah. Mate, I guess that was the whole part of it for the All Blacks thing that was probably the hardest day. All that sort of public scrutiny that you had to go through, even comments like that. I mean, might not seem like much, but they all add up and they all do affect you, eh?
Yeah, no, they do. Like, obviously you try and joke about it and that, but like I said earlier, we do get put under the spotlight a lot, and it only takes sort of one bad game or a little bit of drop off on form, and you just get absolutely sort of roasted online, and it's not nice. Especially when you're on the receiving end of it. Like we do have a lot of sort of training and that to deal with it, but deep down, you can do all you can, but if you do read it, and that it does, we're only human, so it does affect us.
Yeah. Did you ever find something that did sort of help you with that?
Probably just not reading it. Yeah. Which is like I talked to someone about it. I think it might have been Aaron Cruden, and he said if you can't read the bad stuff about you, don't just read the good stuff. So that's sort of like, because most players, like, if they know they've had a good game, they read their press, and it's sort of a feel good thing. But if you're just willing to read that but not the bad stuff, you shouldn't really read it at all, which is his way of doing it. And I found his way quite inspiring, to be fair. Like he was off social media, didn't read into any of it, and he was real strict on it, which was quite impressive.
It is pretty cool. And there was a game where you really stamped your mark as a international loose forward, I guess, and it was that 57-0 drubbing of South Africa, where you absolutely intimidated a South African forward pack like I'd never seen someone do. Talk me through that game for you personally.
That was like, honestly, playing South Africa, like, I've got tons of load of respect for them, and I love the way they all play. Like they're big men, and they fly into contact, and so I leading into those games, it doesn't take much to get up for that battle that you're gonna go forward with them, and like they were probably up there with my favourite games as playing South Africa, because you knew what it was going to be like, and it never failed. Like obviously we scored a lot of points and that, but it definitely didn't take away how physical and how tough opponents they are.
Did you take confidence after that? Because like you say, South Africa are known for their physicality. They are the most physical side in the world. They've got a massive pack who do, like you say, love to hit hard. And those couple of games, mate, you matched them and probably went up them.
I probably never got that sort of feeling that confident in the All Blacks jersey. It was quite weird. I put a lot of pressure on myself and the way I played, and which was a little bit of a downfall on my side of things. But it's something that if I could have gone back and changed, I definitely would have. But I had massive expectations on how I wanted to play, and I never really got sort of too comfortable in it, which in a way, like you do want sort of a good balance of confidence, but also being on edge as well. But I think I was on edge most of the time, so it wasn't that fun, to be fair.
Well, was that just like so super stressful? Like, were you stressed out in meetings and trainings, and was it the whole sort of week that you were feeling that? Yeah,
without a doubt. It'd start on Monday. Like we would have our review, and then we'd get given our lineouts for the week, and I would spend all night learning these new moves, going through all the scenarios of the lineouts and that. But like I could never get it down packed. Like I struggled massively. Like I've been pretty lucky with the coaches I've had, because obviously I'm dyslexic, so all that sort of learning with the writing and reading and that was real tough. But that they helped me out massively with it. But I still it was something that I was real conscious of that I really needed to nail. But it wouldn't have been till I'd say Friday leading into the game where I knew I had the lineouts or something sorted. But I was on edge the whole week, and I get to the day off and I literally would just have to pretty much sleep all day because I was just knackered.
Jeez, that is intense. And did you find a way to speed up your learning process being dyslexic? Did you find a process for yourself that made it easier eventually?
I think the main sort of learning for me was actually telling, obviously, the coach at the time or the forward coach or whatever, how I learnt and the difference that I had with other people. Like, I'm obviously a person that has to do the movement or whatever physically to learn it. So, once they got on board with that and they knew obviously I was dyslexic, they were awesome, eh? Like, they didn't see it as a weakness or anything. They were great about it, and sort of gave me the confidence that that I could do it. But in that environment in the All Blacks, because the lineouts in that team is like the Da Vinci Code. Brodie Retallick was probably, my saviour in that side. Like, I think on Monday nights we'd spend a good hour going through them in the team room, and then meet up again in the morning, do them for another 15 minutes. So, that was awesome. Having guys like that to help you out.
Did you feel like going into a game you were still worrying about the calls and stuff, or by the time you got to a game, did you always just let that go and then just play?
No, I was still worried. That bus trip to the grounds they were probably the most daunting bus rides I've ever had. Because I was covering 6 and number 8. Which is number 8 was Rito's position, and he had every single movement in the line out. That was tough. But I found once I sort of got out there on the field, it did come sort of naturally, and your natural instincts sort of kick in, which was good. And you knew, that stuff you did during the week sort of allowed you to be able to do that. But yeah.
And then obviously in 2019, leading up to the Rugby World Cup, you made the decision that you weren't going to be available for selection for that. So that was obviously a extremely tough decision, but a very brave decision. And I guess sort of what you've spoken about already around how mentally draining being involved in the All Blacks was a big part of that decision.
It was a lot of sort of build up of probably 12, 18 months of rugby. So I knew I'd just come off that 2018 end of year tour, and I wasn't sort of happy with how I'd played, and the sort of stuff I had in place wasn't sort of what I needed. Like, for me to sort of be happy was all on my performance, and if my performance didn't sort of fill my cup, so to speak, I'd sort of beat myself up over it. And with the India tour, we had a massive 8-week break in between. So I spent 8 weeks stewing on how I was playing and sort of being quite frustrated in a way. But I knew, if I sort of put that into my training, I could use it as a positive. So I remember coming into 2019 and I was feeling quite good physically. But then, so in pre-season, I ended up tearing my groin a couple of weeks into pre-season, which is a good classic for most players in pre-season. Good way to get out. But I was pretty gutted at the same time, because I'd spent 6 weeks rehabbing that, and I missed all the pre-season games. But I think I was due to play round 2 of the Super Rugby. So I'd built into full training, and you know what it's like on a Thursday training. You go for a 40, 45-minute full contact, 15 on 15. And I was in the DDs, so I was running against the Highlanders at the time, because I was still 1 week away from playing.
Yeah.
And I remember we were playing the Blues, and obviously they had good jacklers. So as a loose forward, I was sort of contesting the ball at training, and just your typical prop comes diving in on the side and caved my knee in, which was just sort of the icing on the cake, so to speak. I was going to play the next week, and then so I got a scan on that, and I think it was my MCL had torn, so that ended up being, I think it was 8 to 10 weeks. And yeah, I've never been a good player injured, so I've never got used to it, and I've never really mastered how how to sort of bounce back and sort of get back on track. I'd spend weeks, angry about what's happened, and obviously I couldn't do anything about it, but it was something that I never got used to, and something that I wished I had a better way to deal with it, but I just didn't really know what to do at the time.
Is there anything you'd do differently now, knowing what you know? I think like if you get told, say you're out for 6 or 8 weeks or something, obviously you're gutted and you feel like you've let the boys down at that. But I think best sort of way is just you can be a bit gutted, but you've got to sort of shift your focus onto what you can control next, and obviously that's rehabbing yourself the best you can, so you can come back and play quicker. But that was something I never really quite mastered throughout my time. I probably shut off with the amount of injuries I had. Mate, you had that many.
Yeah.
But it is a crazy one, eh? It's something that you look back on and it doesn't seem like a big deal, being injured for 4 to 6 weeks or whatever it is, and you're still getting paid and all that. But when you're in that moment, man, it's so hard to feel like that and look at it from that perspective when you're in it.
Yeah, and like because I wasn't happy with how 2018 finished, and I hadn't even got a chance to play a game for probably a good 3/4 of the Super Rugby, and all that just sort of built up, and like I bottle everything up pretty much, and I wasn't really talking to too many people at that time. I sort of took myself away from the Highlanders environment and did my own thing at the time, and that wasn't the best thing. I thought it was for me, just to be away from the players, because I'd go into HQ and you'd see the boys and they'd ask when you're back playing and all that, and I just every time you felt like you let them down because you're not out there training with them and whatnot. So that was tough, and I didn't get back to playing in that 2019 until our second to last round robin game, and once I sort of got back into play that I was going to be playing in that, all the World Cup stuff started surfacing, and sort of a lot of people asking, is he up for it or is he ready? Because I'd missed a lot of rugby, and the main one was, is he going to go over there and get injured and all that, and I just all that noise I was hearing, and it's just something that I probably should have tried to cut out, but I just didn't really know how to handle it.
Is that why you made that decision to not make yourself available, because you were sort of sick of that noise, or did you genuinely not want to go there?
So originally it was the rugby championship that I told Steve that I wanted to stay out of.
Yeah.
And then, like, I thought that was the best for myself. Obviously, I'd only played 3 games, and I played, I think it was the quarterfinal against the Crusaders, and got yellow carded, and then typical me looking into what the media was saying, they were going, what's he going to be like at the World Cup? Is he going to get yellow carded in a semi-final or something like that?
Yeah.
And that was sort of quite frustrating to hear and whatnot. So, and I didn't think it was going to be a big deal at the time to be left out. I was sort of hoping that they would just say I was out of form and not selecting me. But so the plan was to go back to Tasman and just to play some rugby to try and get my confidence back up. But it was a tough one.
And what was it like once you had made that decision and that had been put out there? How did you feel once everyone was saying that you had made yourself unavailable? It was quite a strange way it actually worked out, because
I didn't really know what was going on at the time with selection or whatnot, but the media put out that I needed to call Steve. I don't know if you remember or not, but they were saying, oh, Liam needs to call him, and I had no idea. So I was learning this stuff when obviously the public was as well. So I sort of found that quite frustrating because, you're finding out all this stuff through the media, which wasn't ideal, but it is what it is. But it wasn't ideal to find out that way that you needed to do that.
And then obviously your next move was over to Japan with Docomo. Why did you make that decision?
That was before I pulled out of the World Cup. At the time, my thinking was, because I talked to my agent quite a lot, we sort of thought, I was getting to the age, I think I was 28, and we thought if I went to a World Cup and then did 2, maybe 3 years in Japan and then called it quits after that, and that was sort of the goal at the time. But yeah, so I ended up going over there for a season, and then obviously an injury with my knee sort of cut it short, but also COVID did as well. And so and in that time of being back in New Zealand, I sort of had a change of heart with wanting to play in New Zealand again and give it a good crack here.
And you also had a pretty major surgery scare too, wasn't it? Did you get your hip and your knee done and one of them became infected?
So I had hip surgery during the year, but it was about 6 or 8 weeks after that. I'm not too sure if it was due to my hip or not, but it was on a Tuesday, I think. I started getting quite a lot of pain in my left shoulder, as it sort of felt like I had a dead arm. And over sort of 48 hours, it got worse and worse, where I actually couldn't lift my arm up. And I remember getting home because I was working on Andrew's farm at the time as well. I remember getting home and I needed to have a shower, and I couldn't even get my shirt off.
Sure.
And I didn't know what was going on, and I thought it was just a muscle in my neck. So I went to the doctors, and they thought, yeah, you've got a tight neck muscle or a shoulder muscle and that. So I went to the All Blacks physio Pete, and we did a lot of acupuncture in it.
Yeah.
And tried to release a lot of the muscles in that. And he sort of realised at that time, he was like, nah, it's got nothing to do with a muscle and that. So I went back home and sort of thought, I'll just park up and see how I go. And I was just getting worse and worse and a lot of pain. And I was quite stubborn, didn't really want to go to hospital. This was on a Thursday, and eventually a couple of friends of mine took me into the urgent doctors in Dunedin, and it was my second visit there that day. So they took me right in and took my temperature, and I think my temperature was about 38 at the time. So I didn't really know it, but they'd rang an ambulance, and within 15 minutes I was rushed into hospital on Thursday night.
And what was it? Was it an infection in your shoulder?
Yeah, so I went into a ward, and I think it was Friday by then, and they were just sort of monitoring me, seeing how things were going. And I was just getting worse and worse each hour during the day. And I got to one stage where I couldn't really move that well, and I was hot and cold, and the nurse come in, and I was actually waiting for an MRI scan to see what was going on, but the MRI machine in the hospital was fully booked until Saturday afternoon.
Polite.
Yeah, and I was there, no good, and then so the nurse took my temperature again, and I think it was up past 40. Shit. Once that sort of happened, they rushed me into the MRI machine, and I was in that much pain. I'm pretty sure I passed out in the machine because it was they took off all of was obviously on some heavy painkillers there. So they took them off to put me in the MRI machine, and I was in no good a state. I was yelling at the lady that was trying to move my arm, and I was not good. So then it wasn't until after that they took me back up to the room, and when I got there, I think it was about 6 doctors there waiting. I was like, this is not too flash. I was like, it's not good. And Mum had turned up as well. So yeah, and that's when they sort of told me that things weren't looking too good.
Jesus.
Initially they thought that it was that infectious flesh-eating disease.
Oh yeah.
And so they rushed me into theatre, and I remember the guy that was going to put me under said, they warned me that I was going to wake up in ICU and have my whole chest open. Yeah. And he also said that, this is probably going to be one of many surgeries. But I think at the time they actually, thought it was quite sort of life-threatening at the time, which was quite scary. But they didn't tell me until I sort of went down to theatre. But luckily I come out of that surgery and they had opened up my neck right across there, and got some of the infection out, and just left a tube in there for a week to let it drain out. And we never really figured out what was the cause of it. But yeah, luckily we managed to sort of come out on top, so to speak.
Crazy. Did you fear for your life going into that surgery? Did you genuinely think you might not be waking up here?
Yeah, it's sort of like I feel a little bit silly now saying it, but I did at the time. I actually made a few phone calls. I think I rang my dad, and that just to sort of talk to them and that, because there was that chance that I was actually either going to be quite sick for a while, or things were a lot worse and head down the wrong way. So yeah, that was pretty daunting. It was probably the sort of most frightened I've ever been. Yeah. It sort of take a bit of a scare like that to give you a wake up call.
And then obviously rugby was the last thing on your mind at this point.
Yeah, I was obviously back in Dunedin and wanting to get back into the Highlanders, but yeah, I spent I think it was 8 or 9 days in hospital, and like a lot of time to think about your choices that you've made and what you want to do with the rest of your sort of time that I had. And that was probably a good sort of reflection time for me, and really sort of got the fire burning again to actually want to get healthy. Healthy was the main thing, but also start playing rugby again in New Zealand. So that was a big turning point.
And you obviously did that. You made your return for the Highlanders, hissing cameo, straight back into the old physical Squire, straight from the get-go off the bench. One of the great cameos. How did you feel running back out there? That feeling of running out in Forsyth Bar it's sort of second to none. Yeah. Especially for the Highlanders. Like, I loved playing at home, and to actually be back in New Zealand playing, like I was on top of the world and real excited for what was sort of ahead. And yeah, obviously getting back into that physical side, especially when I think our first game was against the Crusaders, which is my favourite team to play, which is awesome. So yeah. But then it got cut short again with another injury. So how was this one to deal with?
Yeah, this was it was tough. It was after the Chiefs game, and my knee started sort of playing up again and feeling like it was when I first injured it. And that's when I sort of really sort of knew that, this wasn't too good. It was sort of giving way, walking and that. And I was real sort of determined not to head down that path. But we tried all we could to get it right, but yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be.
Nah, absolute shame. Career cut short at 30 when you still had so much more to give. But, mate, what an incredible journey. Geez, that's good to hear. There's some insight into some of that stuff that's happened in your career. But as always, we've gone to our Instagram for some questions. And since you were the most requested guest we've ever had to come on, there was heaps and heaps of questions. So heaps of questions are about hunting. So how often did you go for a hunt during your career? That's the first question.
So most of the time, so if we'd play on a Saturday, I'd go for a hunt on a Sunday after a game. And our typical week, we'd have a Wednesday off. So usually I'd go for a hunt on the Wednesday. So I could usually get 2 in during the week if things were going well.
Wow, that's crazy. Was your body not ever too sore to go out on a Sunday?
Oh, I sort of found that if I did go out and go for a walk, obviously I didn't go do anything stupid and go for a massive hike. I sort of stayed close to the motorbike, and hunted some places that were quite easy. It actually helped, sort of, rather than sitting at home in front of the TV. And I talked to my trainer, Glenn Stewart, about it a lot, and about that sort of recovery and getting that blood flow moving again. And I think that probably helped me with a lot of my recovery and keeping active.
Fair enough, like that. Next one, best hunting story. This will be good. Oh, that many hunts you've been on.
I don't know if this could be the best or maybe the stupidest. It was actually not too long ago, actually probably 3 or 4 months ago. After work, me, Andrew Hoare, and the other worker, we went out for a quick hunt out the back, and they were looking after the bike, so I was obviously running after, well, not running, but going after the dogs, and they had a pig at the time, and I couldn't hear it, so I was being pretty casual about it and didn't take a rifle with me or a headlamp, and obviously it was getting dark, and I finally got to where the dogs were, and they had this pig. I remember getting in there and it was dark, and I could only just see, but as I went to go in and grab it, the dogs actually let go, and I'm there with this pig, and it's just running straight at me, and I had to jump out of the way, and I went to put my hand out to push it off, and I just felt my hand go real warm, and at that time I realised my hand's in its mouth, and its tusk went straight through the middle of my sort of hand and the finger, and ripped it right open.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so that I was like, I remember I pulled my hand out and sort of held my fingers together, and I didn't want to look, but I opened up my hand, and there was just this deep hole in between my fingers in the middle of my hand.
Wow.
And I was like, fuck, I was like, I'm here by myself, I've got no headlight, and I've got to get these dogs off. So I end up finally getting in there and sorting it out, but I'm rushing back to the bike to holding my hand together, and like we're probably a good hour from home. Finally get back there, and Andrew's like real casual about it, just cruising, and we have a bit of a laugh. I'm probably panicking a little bit at this stage because I couldn't really feel my fingers at the time, so I was like, I've done damage here and that. So I finally go to hospital that night, and they actually put me under the next morning to clean it out. As dramatic as it sounds.
Holy heck.
They did that. Yeah. Oh, it was not good. I was back at work the next day, which was all good, but they cleaned it out and stitched it up, and that was, so Yeah, I'll take a headlamp next time.
Mate, that is crazy. You're lucky that wasn't an incident on one of your recovery day hunts.
Oh, that would not have been good. I think, I wouldn't have been able to play for a couple of weeks with that because it was right in the webbing of my fingers. So,
brutal.
I don't think any of the coaches would have been too happy.
Oh, that's a good yarn. Okay, next question. Oh, this is a good one. Thoughts on young Ethan Blackadder and the comparison of him with you?
Oh, young Doofy. He's the man, eh? I've got so much time for Ethan. I reckon he'd be one of my favourite rugby players at the moment. And probably, a lot of people see all his actions on the field, but it's the type of guy he is off the field. He's an absolute lad. Like, he'll do anything for anyone of his mates. And, he is definitely the type of guy you want beside you. And and you see the way he's playing. Like, I think he should probably be in that starting 15 every week in that All Blacks. I'll definitely have him in my team. So, and the way he plays and that, like, I actually wish I was out there with him. He's outstanding.
Right, he is an absolute champion, eh?
Yeah, he's one of the great.
Okay, next question. What's better, singing the national anthem for the All Blacks or listening to your dogs bail a bore?
It's a pretty special feeling hearing the dogs open up, eh? It's the anticipation of finally hearing them. So I'm probably going to have to go off the dogs bailing.
I genuinely thought you would say that as well. Oh, that's a good question. Okay. What's your favourite loose forward trio you played alongside with?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably, I think Sam Kane and Jerome Kano. Like, I've always looked up to Jerome and the way he plays, and he sort of took me under his wing coming into the All Blacks. So, that was awesome to play alongside him, and everyone knows the way Sam Kane plays and how hard he can tackle and the engine he's got on him. They're awesome players.
Good answers. Couple of absolute lads. Okay, next question. What kept you motivated to go to training every week?
I guess probably for me, it's that feeling on the field when you finally actually get out there on Saturday and play alongside your mates. It's if you get things going right, it's pretty contagious, and just seeing your mates every day is pretty awesome, and you sort of get a lot of energy from being around them and going to battle with them each week.
Nice. Okay, next one. Was it true about the rumours of you signing with Southland?
I didn't sign, but I was going to go to Southland.
Mate, the Stags fans would all be gutted. That would have been the ultimate signing for the Stags. You and Banksy.
Yeah. I was pretty gutted. I didn't get a chance to. That's them ringing now. No, I didn't get a chance to go play for them. It's definitely a team I would have really enjoyed to be a part of.
Yeah, a few good hunting spots down there, I'd imagine.
Yeah, some great spots.
Okay, where did the nickname Dennis originate from?
This is a bit of there's a bit of a yarn behind it.
Here we go.
It was actually me and your brother Tom Marshall. We were both injured. We were both quite bad injuries at the time, and the Tasman Markers, they brought in an intern trainer just to take me and Tom for our rehab, and he was an absolute lad, and his name was Dennis, and we had some great times with Dennis. He was the funniest guy you'd meet. He made turning up to training and going to rehab that much better. It sucks not being able to train, but Dennis, he boosted our morale every day.
Mate, you should have got him to follow
around Nelson.
You should have got him to follow you around with your career.
Yeah, I did think about having him on and letting him live with me and taking him everywhere I went. He's an absolute. He's still living in Nelson, I think, as a swimming lifeguard at Moana Pool. So, yeah, if you're listening, Dennis, I hope you're well.
Mate, when you move up, no doubt you'll be catching back up with him, for sure.
Oh, I'll be linking up with Dennis.
Yeah, living with him.
For dinner. No, linking up.
Okay, last question. Best piece of advice you ever received in your career?
Oh, a heavy one. Best piece of advice that I've had given to me and also experienced is probably just doing what suits you best. Like you gotta put yourself first a lot of the time. And I know you don't want to be selfish, but there is times where you've got to put your best interest first. And I think in rugby and in life, there's a lot of sort of opportunities you'll get to do that. And obviously you will probably piss a couple of people off, but as long as you're happy and you're doing what you feel is right, I think you sort of can't go wrong, especially within yourself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mate, that is a powerful way to finish the podcast. Great advice. I knew you'd come up trump.
Cheers, mate.
Anyway, Danny, absolute pleasure to get you on the podcast. Geez, there's some good stuff in there. Like I said at the start, it was awesome to play with you back in the early Tasman days and just see how far your career has progressed from those early days has been awesome to watch and see where you are now. Unfortunately, I know having to hang up the boots, but your life is just getting started. Really looking forward to seeing what you do next in your future. And mate, like I said at the start, you're an absolute lad. So it's been awesome to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. And just thank you to everyone for their kind messages over the last few days. It's been pretty humbling to read them and to hear them. And it's pretty awesome that we've got some great fans here in New Zealand. And yeah, thank you.
Mate, you've had a massive influence on so many guys' careers, haven't you? Because even reading some of those posts, everyone loves Liam Squire, and that's why so many people message me every day trying to get you on the podcast.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing that probably stood out for me reading a few of them is that, I did make a few people happy. So that sort of filled my cup a fair bit. And, I guess a little bit proud, but yeah.
Mate, you can definitely be proud. You've had a hell of a career and you're a great man. Appreciate you coming on, mate.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.